I moved to a small Appalachian town a few weeks ago. I thought writing about local folklore would give my freelance work a boost. I rented a cozy cabin on the outskirts of town. From the outside, it seemed perfect. But I quickly felt more isolated than I expected. The first night was peaceful. Then around midnight, I heard tapping against my window. I told myself it was just branches. It was windy, right? I got out of bed and walked to the window. I opened the curtain, but outside was only darkness and trees. I felt silly for being worried. But then I noticed strange symbols carved into the trees around the cabin. They looked old. Or maybe they were new. Couldn't tell. But they made me curious. I wrote it down in my notebook. The next days were strange. I explored the town. The houses were old and weathered, just like my cabin. The townsfolk acted odd. They rarely made eye contact. When they spoke, it was in hushed tones. I thought maybe they were just shy. I was the outsider, after all. A few nights later, I woke up feeling uneasy. I couldn't shake the whispers from my dreams. They felt real. I sat up in bed and listened. Was there laughter? I froze. The idea of going outside made me feel anxious. What was happening to me? Was the isolation getting to my head? After that, I pored over my notes. I studied the symbols. I wanted to find meaning. I went deeper into the woods, hoping to discover answers. But every time I went out, I only felt more confused. The symbols were everywhere. They seemed to watch me. I shivered when I touched them. I wanted to leave, but I was too curious. I had come to uncover stories. But maybe now I was the story. I heard odd sounds late at night. Times it was laughter. But I was alone. I felt cold, even during the day. Then one night, I saw a figure standing just beyond the tree line. They looked right at me. I blinked hard. Suddenly, they were gone. I thought maybe I was tired. Or maybe the woods were playing tricks on me. But who was out there? And why did it feel like they were calling me? That night, I heard the whispers again. This time, they called my name. My heart raced. I felt the chill creep down my spine. What were the townsfolk hiding from me? I needed to know. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure I was safe anymore. What were the rules here? I still didn't understand. The air changed around me, heavy with a feeling I couldn't shake. I needed to investigate, but I felt trapped between curiosity and dread. I stood on the brink of a mystery that felt larger than myself, unsure of the risks waiting in the shadows. The next day, I decided to confront my fear. I needed to find out more about this place and its dark secrets. The sun was barely peeking through the trees as I walked into town. I had to talk to someone, anyone. I spotted an older man sitting on a bench outside the general store. He looked like he might be more friendly than the others. As I approached, he met my gaze with a cautious smile. "What brings you to our neck of the woods?" I told him about my interest in folklore. As I spoke, his smile faded. "Folklore can be a tricky thing around here," he said, lowering his voice. "Best to leave some tales untouched." I pressed on. "What about the symbols? I've seen them in the woods." His eyes grew wide and he shook his head. "You shouldn't concern yourself with symbols. Just stories, they are. Old stories. But what do they mean?" I asked, feeling desperate for answers. He stared at me for a moment, as if weighing his words. "Some stories are warnings, young lady. It's best to respect them." Then he stood abruptly and walked away, leaving me with more questions than answers. Feeling frustrated, I wandered back to my cabin. I needed to work, yet my thoughts were consumed by the encounter. That night, I forced myself to stay awake. I wanted to confront whatever it was lurking outside. At midnight, the tapping returned. The same rhythmic sound against the window. Fear danced in my chest, but I gritted my teeth and looked out. This time, I saw it a figure again, moving just beyond the trees. Before I could even think, I grabbed my flashlight and opened the door. The chill of the night wrapped around me, but I pressed on. I stepped into the darkness, heart pounding. "Hello?" My voice trembled, but I called out anyway. There was no response, just the rustle of leaves. Then, I saw it again, a flash of white darting between the trees. It was quick, barely visible, but it felt alive. I followed it, each step feeling heavier than the last. I stumbled into a small clearing and stopped short. That S when I saw it. The ground was covered in more symbols, but these were different, more elaborate, almost pulsating as if they breathed with the night air. I knelt down, tracing my fingers over the strange markings. But then the laughter started. Soft at first, then filling the air around me. Felt invasive. I jumped to my feet, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The woods felt alive, watching me, as the laughter echoed among the trees. I turned to run back to the cabin, but something stopped me. A shadow flickered at the edge of the clearing, tall and thin. It raised a hand, beckoning me forward. I hesitated, ice cold seeping into my bones. I was trapped in a web of mystery, a story that demanded my attention. Questions raced in my mind. Who was this figure? What did it want from me? Before I could think further, the laughter grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. I had crossed a line. What had I unleashed? The shadow shifted, and I felt the air grow thicker. Panic clawed at my throat. I should have turned back. I should have never stepped outside. Yet my feet felt frozen to the ground. The figure gestured again, almost inviting, but I couldn't move. Who are you? I shouted, my voice trembling in the still air. Silence blanketed the woods. The laughter faded, leaving an unsettling quiet. I strained to see the figure, but it remained elusive, just beyond the trees. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the clearing. My heart raced as the sound sliced through the tension. I spun around. The beam of my flashlight cut through the dark, sweeping across the underbrush. Nothing but shadows. Then I remembered the symbols beneath me. I glanced down. They looked different now, almost alive, swirling in patterns like they were trying to tell me something. My fingers brushed against one, and I felt a jolt like electricity, only colder. I gasped and staggered back. Before I could catch my breath, I heard a rustling nearby. My flashlight beam landed on a set of footprints, slim, almost delicate, leading deeper into the woods. Were they human, or something else entirely? Compass in hand, I hesitated. The urge to follow the footprints clawed at me, yet a voice inside warned me to stay put. But curiosity was a force of its own. I couldn't help it. I started to move. Each step felt like I was crossing into another world. My mind raced. The old man's warning echoed in my ears. What were these stories that were best left untouched? As I followed the trail, the trees began to close in. The air grew colder, suffocating. I felt the weight of eyes on me, watching, waiting. I wanted to call out again, but something held me back. Instead, I pressed on, heart hammering, unsure of where this path would lead. Then I caught a flicker of something up ahead. A soft glow, shimmering through the darkness. I rushed forward, hope igniting within me. Maybe this was the answer I sought. But as I drew closer, I realized it wasn't a warm light. It was a pale, ghostly glow that felt wrong, like cold hands gripping my skin. The light pulsed, and I faltered. Should I turn back? My instincts screamed at me to run, but the pull was too strong. One more step and then I could see. That S when the ground beneath me shifted. I stumbled, falling to my knees. The symbols flickered to life, brighter now, casting long shadows around me. And then, just like that, the laughter returned louder, more chaotic. The shadows twisted, and I heard voices whispering, intertwining with the laughter. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. They were mocking me. A fresh wave of fear crashed over me. I scrambled to my feet, backing away from the light. But as I turned, the path I had come from vanished. My heart sank. I was lost. What had I stumbled into? The laughter grew even louder. I was not alone anymore, and that realization sent shivers down my spine. The stories weren't just warnings. They were truths I was now part of. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I heard it, a whisper, cold and clear, right next to my ear. You shouldn't have come here. Finally, the night's horrors began to close in on me. I stumbled back, my heartbeat a wild drum echoing in my ears. The whisper lingered, curling around me like smoke. I wasn't alone. I could feel it. The laughter, the rustling. It surrounded me like some unseen crowd. Panic surged again, and I spun in the darkness, searching for a way out. The symbols beneath me flickered and pulsed, illuminating the ground. I took a deep breath, focusing my mind. I needed to think. My impulsive curiosity had led me into this mess, but maybe I could still find a way back. The footprints, I remembered they led somewhere. I peered into the dark, scanning for their delicate traces. Then, the soft glow caught my eye again. It flickered, more insistent now. I hesitated, torn between moving toward it or running in the opposite direction. Another rustle confirmed my fears. Whatever was out there, it was closer than before. With a quick decision, I darted back toward the light, stomach plummeting. As I approached, the glow morphed before my eyes. It wasn't just light. There were shapes swirling within it, figures partially formed, caught between worlds. They reached out, distorted but familiar. They seemed to beckon to me, smiling wickedly, their faces twisting in joy that a jolt of recognition hit me. They looked like the faces from the old man's stories, but more nightmarish. My breath quickened. I was on the edge of something terrifying, something far worse than I had imagined. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing my flashlight. I cursed under my breath, plunging into darkness. I stumbled, feeling for the ground beneath me, disoriented. The laughter swelled again, deep and mocking, circling around me like a predator. In the stillness that followed, I felt it, a light touch against my shoulder. I froze. Fear shot through me like ice. "Look," a voice whispered, just next to my ear. It was softer, almost kind, but laced with malice. "They want you." My pulse raced. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to move, but where? In the darkness, my senses heightened. Every shadow seemed to shift and breathe. I remembered the symbols. Maybe they could guide me. That I knelt quickly, running my fingers over them. They had a warmth now, pulsing beneath my touch. I focused, willing the light to return. As I connected with them, I felt the ground vibrate. The laughter faltered, almost hesitant. Then, in a burst of illumination, the symbols glowed fiercely, illuminating the woods around me. Shapes shifted, and I caught glimpses of figures darting between the trees watching. An urgency pulsed through me. I needed to escape. With the light as my guide, I scrambled to my feet. I didn't know where I was going, but I dashed forward, hoping to break free of this place. The laughter turned frantic, angry. I could almost feel hands reaching for me, but I pushed on. When I caught sight of something in the distance, a shadowy doorway between two trees, a dark split that promised escape. I ran toward it, ready to leap through. But just as I closed in, a voice boomed, filling my mind and shaking my core. "You will not leave." I stopped mid-step, my heart racing. That voice wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was powerful, familiar. The mocking laughter faded. Something far worse was waiting for me. I was tied to this place whether I wanted it or not. I took a shaky step back, my breath catching in my throat. That voice, it clawed its way into my mind, dredging up memories I didn't want to confront. I turned slowly, my eyes straining in the darkness. Then I saw her. A figure swayed just beyond the tree line, her silhouette barely visible against the shadows. The moonlight caught her hair, a wild mane that danced as if it had a life of its own. A familiar fear coursed through me. This was the woman from the stories, the one who'd been lost, caught in a cycle of darkness. "Why are you here?" I called out, my voice trembling. Her laughter echoed soft, airy, but carrying a weight of despair. "You should not have wandered so close. The woods aren't what they seem. They never were." I clenched my fists, trying to find strength. "What do you want from me?" In an instant, she was gone, swallowed by the night. The shadows around me seemed to swirl tighter, pressing in. I blinked, my heart racing. The glowing symbols beneath me dimmed, their warmth slipping away as the darkness closed in. I needed answers. I dropped to my knees, my fingers tracing the symbols again. They felt different now, cold and lifeless. Panic bubbled within me. What do I do? The whisper returned, wrapping around my mind. You must choose. Join them or be lost forever. In an attempt to swallow my fear, I shouted, I don't want any part of this. I could almost hear the laughter sharpen, razor-like. Too late. Suddenly, I felt a tug at my clothing, a yanking sensation that pulled me downward. It felt as if the earth itself was trying to swallow me whole. I kicked and fought, but gravity seemed to swell. I was being drawn into the ground, and the symbols twisted in my vision. With a desperate surge, I reached for the tree closest to me. I wrapped my fingers around its rough bark, clawing at it, trying to anchor myself against the pull. Help me! I yelled into the void, but no answer came. That S when I spotted something glinting in the roots of the tree. It was small metallic, and when I squinted, I realized it was a locket. The symbols pulsed more brilliant and frantic, and an urge gripped me to reach for it. In that moment the laughter stopped. A silence enveloped the scene, thick and almost suffocating. I grasped the locket, feeling its weight in my palm. What I did next would either bind me to this place or set me free. As I opened it, I felt everything change. The world around me flickered, the shadows deepening, as if responding to the revelation within. Inside the locket was a picture, a face I recognized, yet didn't. My heart sank. Who was she? Before I could grasp the implications, old memories surged forward, and the ground beneath me began to tremble anew. I braced myself, but a looming shadow stretched toward me, and I could sense that whatever lay ahead would demand everything I had. I knew then that the nightmare was far from over. I felt disoriented as the world shifted around me. The image in the locket gnawed at me, pulling at the edges of my memory. Who was that woman? Why did her face seem so familiar? The tremors in the ground became more violent, and I steadied myself against the tree, desperate for something solid to hold on to. Focus, I whispered to myself, trying to draw courage from those words. I couldn't let the shadows crush me. The whispers grew louder again, swirling in chaotic patterns, battling for attention. Join them, become one. I shouted into the darkness. But my voice felt small and fragile. The locket clattered to the ground, and I instinctively bent to pick it up. The moment my fingers brushed its surface, a shock ran through me like a jolt of electricity that connected me to a deeper truth buried within the woods. Suddenly, in one fleeting moment, I understood it. This place was alive, its heartbeat matching my own. Then I heard the faint sound of footsteps. Someone was approaching. I froze, peering into the dark, my breaths shallow and rapid. The shadows shifted again, and a figure emerged. A man stepped into the moonlight, his face hidden beneath a weathered hat. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice gravelly but calm. These woods are not safe for those unprepared. I took a cautious step back, feeling the rough bark against my side. Who are you? Just someone who knows how deep the darkness runs, he replied, taking another step closer. You got a locket there. It belongs to her. He nodded toward the locket in my hand. My fingers tightened around it. What do you know about this? I demanded, still ready to flee if needed. I was once like you, lost and searching for answers, he said, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. But you must turn back. You're attracting attention. Tension? I repeated, baffled. That he glanced over his shoulder, nervous. Things in these woods don't take kindly to intruders. They come for you. Before I could comprehend his warning, the shadows lunged forward, twisting and shifting into shapes that looked almost human. They surrounded me, flickering like an old film, making it impossible to tell where one began and another ended. A cold breeze rushed through, whispering my name. Run! The man shouted, and I didn't hesitate. My instincts kicked in, propelling me past the figures through the trees. Branches whipped against my arms as I darted forward, my heart hammering in my chest. But the whispers followed. It's too late, they echoed, mingling with the rustle of the leaves. Just as I thought I'd escaped, I tripped over a tangled root and fell. Scrambling to my feet, I looked back. The man stood frozen, his face twisted in fear. The shadows surged around him, and I realized they were more than just wood and darkness. They were memories, lost souls yearning for someone to join them. "Don't look back," he shouted. I forced myself to run, my thoughts racing as I plunged deeper into the woods. The ground trembled beneath my feet, and the shadows reached out, hungry. I had to get away. The locket pulsed with urgency in my hand, a warning that maybe I was already too late. Then, ahead of me, I noticed something, another flicker of light breaking through the trees. The cabin. Hope surged, but the shadows tightened their grip behind me. The choice was clear: confront whatever awaited me in the cabin, or risk getting consumed by the darkness trailing behind. I sprinted toward the light, my breath heavy with dread. What lay inside would change everything. I dashed toward the cabin, heart racing with each step. The warm glow from the windows stood in stark contrast to the chilling shadows nipping at my heels. As I reached the door, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the weathered wood. Was I safe inside, or would the darkness follow me even there? With a push, the door creaked open and I stumbled inside. The light dimmed as I stepped into the narrow room, my eyes adjusting quickly. The cabin had a rustic charm. Wooden beams stretched overhead, and a flickering lantern sat on a small table. Felt both inviting and unsettling. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing in the silence. No answer came. I took a cautious step deeper into the cabin, my pulse still racing. The locket in my pocket was a steady reminder of why I was here. I needed answers. I scanned the room, looking for anything that might help. A fireplace lined with old photographs caught my eye. Each frame contained images of people smiling, a woman with long dark hair, a man with a rugged face, and children playing. But they all felt distant. Memories I didn't belong to. I reached for one of the photographs, feeling a twinge of recognition. It was unsettling to see the woman who resembled the figure in my locket. Who were they? Thoughts raced through my mind, fragments of memories I couldn't quite grasp. But then I heard it. A low thud came from the back of the cabin, a noise that sent a shiver down my spine. Instinctively, I dropped the photo and turned, facing the direction of the sound. My breath caught in my throat as I took slow steps toward the back room. The weight of the heavy shadows behind me felt almost tangible. "Hello?" I tried again, my voice trembling. Nothing responded. I found a door slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness peering through. I pushed it open slowly, revealing a dimly lit space. My stomach twisted with anxiety as I stepped inside. The air was thick and cooler here, and the only sound was a soft rustle. Suddenly, the cabin door slammed shut behind me. Panic surged through my veins, and I whipped around, heart racing. I was trapped. The whispers returned, louder this time. "Join us, stay," they beckoned. Echoing off the walls, I glanced back into the shadowed room before me. There, in the corner, something moved. My pulse quickened. I strained my eyes to see better. Just beyond the reach of the flickering lantern light stood a figure. A child, maybe? Their small frame hunched slightly, peering up at me with wide, dark eyes. "What do you want?" I asked, fear coating my words. The figure opened its mouth, but the sound that came out was a garbled whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." Before I could process those words, the shadows surrounding us swelled, creeping closer and merging into one mass. I stumbled back, feeling the energy shift. The cabin had turned from a refuge to a cage. Then everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, swallowing any remnant of light. Everything felt heavy, like I had stepped into a thick fog. My heart thundered in my chest, and I squinted, searching for any hint of the figure I had seen. It was gone. I took a cautious step forward, my foot brushing against something cold and hard. My fingers fumbled in the dark, trying to make sense of my surroundings. I finally found the wall and pressed against it for support. The chilling whispers returned, surrounding me, smothering me in an unfathomable weight. "Please, let me go," I shouted into the void, but my voice was lost, swallowed by the oppressive ambience. Just then, the whispering changed. It twisted and warped into familiar tones: laughter, conversations, even the sound of someone humming a lullaby. Memories flooded back, faces covered in uncertainty, moments stuck in a haze. "This isn't happening," I murmured, shaking my head as if that would dispel the haunting echoes. Suddenly, I heard a sharp inhalation like a breath being taken too late. Someone else was here, lurking in the shadows. With a surge of adrenaline, I backed away and bumped into something. I whipped around, but the figure of the child reappeared, somehow closer, yet still indistinct. "What do you want?" I stammered again, feeling both defiant and terrified. The child stepped closer, a flicker of pale light illuminating their features for a split second. My breath hitched. It wasn't just a child. It was the face I recognized from the photograph, the woman's daughter. Or maybe it was the fear in the child's eyes that confirmed it. "You need to leave," they pleaded, urgency slicing through the lethargy of the shadows. "They won't stop until they have you." "What? Who would?" I asked, confusion spilling over into desperation. Then the darkness seemed to pulse. Shadows began to stretch toward me, and the room felt alive. The child didn't answer but took a step back, forcing me to choose stay or flee. Before I could react, the child turned and dashed toward the door, throwing it open and breaking the heavy silence. Light poured in, revealing the unsettling sight I had missed. The walls were covered in marking scratches, names, dates. I realized, horrified, that they weren't just random. They formed a grotesque timeline of loss. Each name scratched into the wood told a story of those who had vanished. A chilling realization gripped me. No, I mumbled, understanding far too late that I was part of this pattern. "I need to get out." I bolted after the child into the blinding light, but before I could reach the threshold, a force pulled me back. The air shifted again, and a low growl echoed through the cabin, reverberating in my chest. I spun around just in time to see a pair of glowing eyes emerge from the thickest shadows. I stumbled back, heart pounding, as I realized that whatever was in the cabin wasn't finished with me yet. And then, in a voice that chilled my bones, it said, "Stay with us." I was ensnared between the door and darkness, and it felt like the walls were closing in. I had to make a choice. But before I could decide, the creature lunged forward. I barely had time to react before the creature leaped at me. My instincts kicked in, and I darted sideways, escaping its grasp by inches. The cabin became a chaotic blur as I stumbled past the door and collided with the wall, desperate for a way out. The child's plea echoed in my mind, urging me to flee. I could feel the weight of the creature's presence closing in, a dark mass teeming with malice. I turned again to glance at the doorway. Light spilled inside, a beacon of hope in the churning shadows. I screamed for the child, but my voice rippled into silence. "Leave!" The child's voice rang in my ears once more. I ducked away from the growling figure, trying to maneuver toward the door. But the darkness twisted, shifting shapes around me, forming a barrier I could hardly penetrate. The walls groaned, and more names scratched themselves into existence on the wood, names I didn't recognize but felt the weight of nonetheless. Each one added to the creeping sense of dread. Then I saw a streak of movement from the corner of my eye. The child was still there, standing just outside the radius of light, fear frozen on their face. "Come on," they urged, and with a mix of terror and hope, I lunged toward them. As I sprinted, the creature lunged again with a roar that echoed in the night, shaking the very structure of the cabin. I flung myself through the threshold, bursting into the outside world. Relief flooded through me as the cool night air enveloped me. But I wasn't safe yet. I spun around, seeing the door frame flicker like a mirage behind me. The creature's eyes glowed even brighter in the dim light, a warning growl escaping from the depths of the shadows. It remained inside, but I knew it wouldn't be contained for long. "Run!" the child screamed, their hands trembling as they pointed toward the dense woods. I hesitated, torn between the refuge of the trees and the instinct to stay and fight whatever horror lurked within. It was no contest. I took off into the darkness. The ground crunched beneath my feet as I rushed deeper into the woods. My heart raced, but adrenaline drove me onward. I could hear the whispers again, now mingling with the sounds of the forest, the rustle of leaves, the distant hooting of an owl. Was the creature following? I glanced back, half expecting to see it looming behind me. But I was alone, or so I thought. The child was at my side now, racing ahead. This way, they urged, darting under the branches. I followed, albeit hesitantly. I needed answers, but how could I ask a child who was supposed to be a memory? As we reached a clearing, the moonlight spilled onto the ground, illuminating our surroundings. What is happening? I demanded, struggling to catch my breath. The child turned, their expression a mix of fear and determination. They take everyone. Their voice was small but firm. You need to remember. Before I could question what that meant, a sudden chill crept through the air. A low growl sounded again, but this time it was closer. In the back of my mind, I recalled the names etched into the cabin walls. They echoed like a warning. That S when I saw it, a dark silhouette emerging from the trees, eyes burning like coals. I felt the blood drain from my face. What do we do? I gasped, panic flooding my veins. The child grasped my hand. Trust me. They began to lead me deeper into the woods, but I wasn't sure we would escape this time. Fear twisted in my gut, and I didn't understand the rules of this place, but I knew we couldn't turn back. We raced deeper into the woods, the heavy underbrush tangling at our feet, but the child pulled me forward with surprising strength. Fear and urgency propelled me, every instinct screaming that we needed to escape. The whispers surged again, surrounding us, shrill and maddening. Remember, remember, they chanted, as if they were mocking my confusion. Remember what? I pressed. What do you want me to remember? The child paused briefly, looking back with those haunting, familiar eyes. You know the stories, they whispered urgently, you only need to believe them. But who was I to believe? The symbols, the whispers, the shadowy figure, it all felt like a lurking nightmare I couldn't wake from. I tried to think of the old man's warning, the lore embedded in the town like a reminder of ages past. I strained to tap into the memories I had chased after since arriving in this strange, isolated place, but my mind felt foggy, a maze of thoughts I couldn't pin down. We stumbled into a small, moonlit glade. The child looked around, their expression changing from fear to something else, a determination that sparked a feeling of clarity within me. This is where it began, they said, pointing to the ground, where faint markings mimicked those in the cabin, but in the delicate way of forgotten tales. Listen, they insisted, their voice suddenly steadier. You have to help me remember who we are. I knelt down, fingers brushing against the silence of the earth. It felt like secondary truths were hidden beneath its surface, memories of the past clawing at my consciousness, but not quite breaking through. But then, a sound cut through it, the deep rumble of something awakening. The darkness stirred around us, and I felt the temperature drop, winter-like and heavy. A shadow darted between the trees behind us. The creature loomed closer, angered by our escape. I turned, eyes wide with panic. Run, I commanded, gripping the childish hand tightly. We bolted toward the edge of the glade, but the shadows extended outward, flickering like flames, coaxing us back into their realm. The laughter swelled again, louder, more incessant. Join us, it beckoned, filled with seductive promise. But the child tugged at my hand as if they knew another way, leading me toward the flickering light from the cabin we had dashed from. That way, we can break the cycle, they urged. Break the cycle? I echoed, heart racing. How? Only by facing it can you remember, they shouted, their voice rising above the chaos. With a mix of confusion and grim determination, I followed. The light from the cabin shimmered in my vision, almost like a way home, but as we neared, the figure from before, the glow of its eyes, manifested in the distance. It blocked our path forward, a grotesque silhouette that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. I could feel the fear spiral as we approached the threshold, as if the shadows wanted to consume my very essence. But something inside me ignited. The locket, its warmth spread through my fingers, urging me on. I held it tightly, desperately focusing on the memories it contained. Stay back, I shouted, feeling the power of recognition swell within me. I didn't just belong to this story, I was part of its legacy, entwined within its fabric. I will not let you take me. The figure hesitated and shrank against the pulse of the locket's glow. Behind me, the child clutched my leg tighter, trembling. We can break it, we can free them. I don't even know how. Panic bubbled through me again. Remember, the child's eyes filled with urgency. All of us are trapped, those whose names were lost, and you are one of us. At that moment, everything clicked. The faces in the photographs, the woman who looked familiar, the stories I had chased, they all formed a thread, weaving together a darker tapestry of fate. I shouted, "You want to turn this place into a cycle of fear? I will claim my story, I will claim the truth of this place." My heart pounded as I breathed out the weight of thousands of whispered stories. The creature shrieked, dissolving slightly under the truth of my declaration. The air crackled with energy. Shadows pulsed at the edges of the clearing, swinging back and forth like pendulums of nostalgia and loss. "Now," I urged the child. I raised the locket, feeling the power surge through us as stories fought to be freed. The shadows pulled back, revealing other fleeting forms. They shifted from memory to consciousness, as if the stories themselves awakened. "Who are you?" They echoed back to me in harmony, and I gestured toward the glowing symbol-carved earth. "I'm you. I remember. We are the lost, but we can reclaim our names." With that, the symbols flared like fireworks, scattering the darkness. A blinding light erupted, pooling around us and breaking through the shadows. The lingering whispers began to harmonize, rising into an ethereal melody that resonated with my own heartbeat. I looked over to the child, whose face slowly brightened as the figure behind us shrank, disintegrating into the spectral fabrics of the forest. The darkness twisted, writhing as if uprooted, and the triumphant laughter that had haunted me turned into tones of joy as the final echo faded. The surrounding earth grew still. The glade felt alive as if it was breathing, intaking our stories, weaving them back into the land. I looked around. The world looked clearer, lighter, the burden lifting as if the trappings of the darkness had been shed. But then, as the light faded, I noticed something. The woods stood unchanged but somehow different, familiar yet deeply unsettling. The laughter remained, echoing faintly somewhere deeper in the forest. The child turned to me, their face now luminous. "You did it." But my heart sank a little. "Did I?" "Now we can remember," they said, a bittersweet edge to their smile. I glanced back toward the path we had come, uncertainty churning in me. What other secrets lay beyond those trees? And would those forgotten stories come back to haunt or protect us? I realized there would always be questions left unanswered, with trails entwined with shadows beneath our feet. In the end, I understood perhaps my flight from the darkness hadn't ended, but transformed. I moved back toward the tree-line, hand clasping the locket tightly. "I have to go back," I murmured, half to myself. The past was still there, half forgotten, lingering in the shadows, and I knew this journey was only just beginning. And without looking back, I stepped into the uncharted whispering of the future, ready to confront whatever awaited me in those shadows that were now all too familiar.